God made this covenant with Abraham, and then he commanded Abraham to bring his household into the covenant. And he said that all households were supposed to do this. And that was the covenant of circumcision. And then he talks about this covenant throughout the Word, throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. He gave us specific instructions regarding this covenant, though it doesn't seem like anyone takes it seriously. In Exodus 15:26, he said, "If you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." Implication is, these diseases, these illnesses, these things that you go to the doctor for, you're supposed to be going to God. He's the one who sends them. He's the one who heals them. And why does he send them? When people do not listen to him, do what is right in his eyes, or pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees. 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 13. When I shut up the heavens so that there's no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, not global warming. When I send these things, he sends them, not Satan, not Mother Nature. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. Oh, your people have been sinning, not the pagans. Implication is, he sent these things to get your attention, and you're supposed to know your covenant to return to him. But it doesn't seem like anyone knows their covenant. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayers offered in this place. I have chosen and consecrated this temple so that my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. Guess what, guys? There's not a building that's a temple anymore. We're the temple. We're told that all throughout the New Testament. Verse 19, but if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands I've given you and go off to serve other gods and worship them, but if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands I've given you and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will uproot Israel from my land. Oh, the land you gave them. You're going to uproot them. And it just so happens you did that, which I have given them, and reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. This temple will become a heap of rubble. All who pass by will be appalled and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? And people will answer, listen, because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he brought all this disaster on them. Now listen to the language he uses, because he's going to use it again in prophecy. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. This temple will become a heap of rubble. All who pass by will be appalled and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? People will answer, because they've forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he brought all this disaster on them. He's going to make them a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. So here's the thing. God has also brought us out of Egypt. You don't get to say that this is only for some sort of ethnic group. God has brought us out of Egypt. If you genuinely know him, he has brought you out of that bondage that you sold yourself to, and he's brought you into a place of understanding that he calls spiritual Israel. He brings you into truth, a place that he calls spiritual Israel. And you enter that land and your life is changed. Your life is also really hard because you start to suffer for the name. And now that you've been redeemed, you don't belong to yourself anymore. Ezekiel 5, verse 14, I will make you a ruin and a reproach among the nations around you. Now we have the fulfillment of him speaking directly to you as the temple. I will make you a ruin and a reproach among the nations around you in the sight of all who pass by. Is that what he just said in 2 Chronicles chapter 7? Because it sounds a lot like what he said he was going to do. And why did he say he was going to do it? Let's go back to 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 19. But if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands I've given you and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will uproot Israel from my land, which I have given them, and reject this temple I've consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. So what are the people doing? Forsaking the covenant. They're forsaking the outline of the covenant that he extended to you, because it's an if-then covenant. Jesus didn't pay it all. Sorry, guys. Jesus paid his role in the covenant. A covenant goes both ways. It is a contract. If you do this, then you get the reward. If you don't, you won't. And it just so happens in this particular covenant, contract, agreement, that if you choose to reject the terms of your covenant, not only do you not get the reward, but you will be in eternal torment. Is anyone hearing that? Like, does anyone understand what the word is saying about this? Because I keep warning you guys, and no one's taking me seriously. It's not my message, it's the message of the word. So it's not about me personally. This is about you rejecting God. This is about you rejecting what he has said. Eternal torment. Not only have you forsaken the opportunity for salvation, but you're going into eternal torment. Is there anything here that's so important to hide away, to not do? Because your worst day here is nothing compared to what you're going to experience in eternity. Ezekiel 5 verse 14, I will make you a ruin and a reproach among the nations around you in the sight of all who pass by. Remember, those passing by are saying, why has the Lord done such a thing to his temple and to this land? And what is the answer that's given? Because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he brought all this disaster on them. So when the disaster comes, don't act like you don't know why he has brought this. Because you have been warned repeatedly over the last 2.5 years. Ezekiel 5, verse 15. You will be a reproach and a taunt, a warning and an object of horror to the nations around you when I inflict punishment on you in anger and in wrath and with stinging rebuke. By the way, God says that there are objects of his mercy and objects of his wrath. So if this is what's happening, you just might be an object of his wrath in order to display his glory to the objects of his mercy. Is that what you want to be? Because if you don't return to him and you don't live out this covenant and you don't heed the warning of the prophets and the servants that he has sent right now at this point in time to do this very thing for you, that's what you'll be. And in fact, that's the fruit of what you are. I, the Lord, have spoken. When I shoot at you with my deadly and destructive arrows of famine, I will shoot to destroy you. I will bring more and more famine upon you and cut off your supply of food. I will send famine and wild beast against you, and they will leave you childless. Plague and bloodshed will sweep through you, and I will bring the sword against you. I, the Lord, have spoken. This is what he's spoken to me about this sword, famine, wild beast, and plague. The razor of judgment, which you find out in the book of Isaiah, is the king of Assyria, who I believe is represented in wild beasts, because God uses wild beasts in order to represent those who are brought against his people to devour. So let's read the rest of the chapter. In chapter 5, we're going to go back up to verse 1. I just wanted to demonstrate this point. I wanted to demonstrate to you why it is that he's bringing this. Now, son of man, take a sharp sword and use it as a barber's razor to shave your head and your beard. When the days of your siege come to an end, burn 1/3 of the hair inside the city. Take 1/3 and strike it with the sword all around the city, and scatter 1/3 to the wind. For I will pursue them with drawn sword. But take a few hairs and tuck them away in the folds of your garment. Again, take a few of these and throw them into the fire and burn them up. A fire will spread from there till all Israel. Well, what's the fire going to do? He's already told you. We just got done reading about it. To destroy you. This is what the sovereign Lord says. This is Jerusalem, which I've set in the center of the nations with countries all around her. Yet in her wickedness, she has rebelled against my laws and decrees more than the nations and countries around her. She has rejected my laws and not followed my decrees. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. You've been more unruly than the nations around you and have not followed my decrees or kept my laws. You've not even conformed to the standards of the nations around you. So, let me just break down what he's saying. You remember a while back when Marjorie Taylor Greene said of New York, there was some sort of judgment God brought on New York, and she said, somebody needs to repent. You remember that? Well, God says that those who are claiming to be his are worse than the pagan nations around them. How's that to shut her up? If that's your attitude, you are not one of the ones. Because we're required to take the plank out of our eye in order to help our brother take the speck out of his. God has repeatedly said that these are his people who have turned away from him. That this is why he is sending these judgments. When I shut up the heavens so that there's no rain or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Okay, so it's his people who are supposed to be preserving the land. You're the salt of the earth. If you lose your saltiness, there's no way to make you salty again. You're preserving the earth, which means we're the reason why God has not destroyed the earth. If it was on account of anybody else, the earth would have been destroyed. We're the reason. He's waiting for us to get it together. But if we're not going to do it, then what's stopping him from destroying it? Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself am against you, Jerusalem, and I will inflict punishment on you in the sight of the nations. Because of your detestable idols, I will do to you what I have never done before and will never do again. Therefore, in your midst, parents will eat their children, and children will eat their parents. I will inflict punishment on you and will scatter all your survivors to the winds. Therefore, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, because you have defiled my sanctuary with all your vile images and detestable practices, I myself will shave you. I will not look on you with pity or spare you. Okay, he's not talking about taking a razor, a Gillette, a Bic. He's talking about shaving down this group of people whom he calls Jerusalem, who are supposed to be his people, and he's shaving them down into a remnant. So you'll be gone, destroyed. And in Isaiah, we find out that the fruit, the way that we know that you are no longer in the land of Jerusalem that he brought you to, when he revealed himself to you, when he brought you out of Egypt, brought you into this land, gave you ears to hear, the fruit that you will understand, as we see in Isaiah, is that you've been hardened. You no longer see, you no longer hear, you no longer understand. You're out, you're driven out of the land. And for those who have been enlightened, who've tasted of the heavenly gift, Paul says it's impossible for them to be brought back into repentance because they are crucifying the Son of God all over again and subjecting him to public disgrace. So you don't get to play around with this like it's some game. If you don't want it, that's what's going to happen to you. God isn't going to force you. A third of your people will die of the plague or perish by famine inside of you. A third will fall by the sword outside your walls, and a third I will scatter to the winds and pursue with drawn sword. Then my anger will cease, and my wrath against them will subside, and I will be avenged. And when I have spent my wrath on them, they will know that I, the Lord, have spoken in my zeal. I will make you a ruin and a reproach among the nations around you in the sight of all who pass by. You will be a reproach and a taunt, a warning, and an object of horror to the nations all around you when I inflict punishment on you in anger and in wrath and with stinging rebuke. I, the Lord, have spoken. When I shoot at you with my deadly and destructive arrows of famine, I will shoot to destroy you. Okay? Not to save you. If this is what you want, it's not to save you. I will bring more and more famine upon you and cut off your supply of food. I will send famine and wild beasts against you, and they will leave you childless. Plague and bloodshed will sweep through you, and I will bring the sword against you. I, the Lord, have spoken. And later on in Ezekiel 6, he does say, but I will spare some. For some of you will escape the sword when you are scattered among the lands and the nations. Then in the nations where they have been carried captive, those who escape will remember me, how I have been grieved by their adulterous hearts, which have turned away from me, and by their eyes, which have lusted after their idols. They will loathe themselves for the evil they've done and for their detestable practices, and they will know I am the Lord. I did not threaten in vain to bring this calamity on them. You want to understand more of your covenant? Read Leviticus 26, read Deuteronomy 28. You should not be looking at the circumstances in your life, at your afflictions, at your illnesses and diseases. You shouldn't be looking at those as random things. If you actually believe in God, then you know that he's sovereign and you know his word. You know that he says he is the one who sends all these things, not Satan, not anything else, not some random genetic mutation, germs or a virus that got into your body. No, God is sending this and he's sending it for his reason. And if you're doing this work, if you are truly putting these things into practice, you're going to know. If you truly believe this and you go back to God and you ask him, why is it that you've brought this on me? Deal with me. Help me to understand. He will. But you have to believe in him enough to actually do that. And I don't see that people actually believe in him. This is one more angle of the message that I have been speaking to you regarding the judgment that God is going to bring. If you heed the message, you just might spare your life. If you don't, you will not. You will not be saved. God sends his prophets to warn. He does not send them to speak some message of peace, and get you all worked up in your flesh to strategize about how you're going to avoid the consequences that he's going to send. He sends his prophets to call you into repentance and to warn. I don't care if you don't like the message. This is the message he requires me to speak. It's his message. So if you love him, then you'll be able to hear it and you will respond to it. And if you don't, you won't hear it and you won't respond. God says that if you seek him, he will not turn away anyone who comes to him, but you got to do it genuinely. Please discern this message with him.